we have breaking political news. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey is entering the growing 2020 Democratic primary field.
I believe that we can build a country where no one is forgotten, no one is left behind, where parents can put food on the table, where there are good-paying jobs with good benefits in every neighborhood, where our criminal justice system keeps us safe instead of shuffling more children into cages and coffins, where we see the faces of our leaders on television and feel pride, not shame. It is not a matter of can we. It's a matter of do we have the collective will, the American will. I believe we do. Together, we will channel our common pain back into our common purpose. Together, America, we will rise. I'm Cory Booker, and I'm running for President of the United States of America.
And he's in, fully in. No exploratory committee, no, dipping your toe in. He's fully in, Joe.
No listening tour, no nothing. Cory Booker running for president in 2020. Reverend Al, he's called you and asked you your thoughts. Why don't you give give the rest of us your thoughts about what we should be looking for as Cory Booker becomes the 473rd person to decide that they're going to seek the Democratic nomination for president in 2020. A very valuable nomination, because I think most would suggest right now that whoever wins that wins the presidency.
I think that he should not be underestimated. Cory, I've known a while. Cory came fought his way into being a Rhodes Scholar, went to Oxford when no one thought he could do that given his background. He came in, when he returned to the States, he went and lived in Newark, lived in the projects, ran for the city council, won, ran for mayor against the established order in Newark, against the machine, Sharp James, who beat him. He came back again and beat the opponents, became mayor, and kept living in the project still to this day. So he has a story to tell of how he fought from the bottom and kept going. He knows the people on the ground. I think he's going to be a very interesting candidate. He's very bright. He's very charismatic. He's hardworking. I think it's going to be a real battle, and I think that that is what the Democratic Party is going to need.
Yeah, Gene Robinson, for most of your professional career in life, most of my professional career in life, most of Al Sharpton's professional career in life, running for president was a white man's game. And it was a big news story. It was a blaring news story. Let's have 48, a woman thinking about running for president, she just might win. A black man is talking about running for president, but of course he could never win. Well, we start 2020 with Elizabeth Warren, with Kamala Harris, with Cory Booker, and actually it seems pretty darn normal. You look at, of course, Kirsten Gillibrand, Julian Castro, Tulsi Gabbard. This is quite a changing landscape for America and for American politics.
It sure is. I mean, all our presidents so far, except Barack Obama, have been white men. White men are definitely in the minority of the Democratic candidates who've announced so far, all 473 of them. Yes. It'll be 474 soon. Somebody else will jump in. It's a reflection of the changing country, the changing Democratic Party, and the question for Cory Booker, I think, and he'll go about defining it, is what lane is he going to be in? We have an increasingly crowded progressive lane in the Democratic field so far. There are others who might jump in, like Joe Biden, who would occupy a different lane. It's going to be a fascinating we're going to have to staff up just to cover, just to keep track of the Democratic candidates. But it's going to be fascinating, and let them all fight it out. I think it's good for the party, and it'll be a good definitional moment, I think, for the Democratic Party as it looks toward and you're right, what ought to be a victory.
Rev, I think most Democrats agree exactly with what Gene Robinson said at the end there, which is that it's time to have a real fight for the nomination. Let's all get out there, put our ideas out there, and see who's worked best as a reaction to what happened last time, where you effectively had a coronation of Hillary Clinton without a conversation about who the candidate should be, except for Bernie Sanders. But the question that Gene poses is an interesting one, which is, yes, it's good to have all these people in, but if you're Cory Booker, if you're Kamala Harris, if you're Elizabeth Warren, how do you separate yourself from the other? They're all friendly in the Senate. They share a lot of the same core ideas. How do you make yourself different than the others?
And I think Gene raises a good question. The answer is that you have to be authentic. Part of what people are looking for is authenticity. So you can't choose a lane. You have to be what lane you already have been in. Otherwise, they're going to go in your background and say, that's not who you really are. And I think that people that are running are going to be defined by who they've been, not by how they cast themselves now. I mean, I talked to kids today. Back in the day, Donnie and I could talk to young people and tell them things. They will Google while you're talking and say, that's not what you said 15 years ago, Reverend Al. You're in a world now where you're going to have to be authentic and represent what it is. So Cory can't choose a lane. He's going to have to go hard drive on the lane he's always been in. Same with Kamala, same with Liz Warren. And that's the person that can win as the person they are, and that's the only way you're going to beat Donald Trump.
Speaking of person, it's interesting when I looked at Cory's tape. To me, that was just 101. I mean, that's an issue that I think that a lot of Democrats can have. That's just kind of apple pie, and that's for the people. I think, and Rev, I'm going to push back a little something you said in the earlier segment, that it's about a vision. Actually, Donald Trump had a very clear vision. I mean, he's been very consistent. It's make America white again, and we know the hate that he plays on. And I actually don't think it's going to be about vision, but I think it's going to be about strength and comfort food, the personal brand, not necessarily people don't vote on issues. And I think right now you're going to need the strength. This is what I love about Biden. You're going to need the strength, but you're also going to need comfort. We took a chance on those, and Biden is both of them. There's one other person that I think would blow the whole field up that nobody talks about. I don't know if she's ever interested. Michelle Obama. Can you imagine?
Let me
Michelle
answer that
Obama.
for you. She is not interested.
Okay, well, if she was, but other than her, I think the strength and the comfort is Joe Biden. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as a vice president. Wow, that gives me.
Oh, that would be a great ticket. I don't think Michelle Obama's interested, but I think Biden. I think any combination would be good. But they first have got to sell people. I agree with you on strength,
who your core
but I still want vision. Even if I have a strong person, I want to know where they're going to bring me.
You know, I was struck how vague that announcement was. Now, it's his first run, obviously, right? But this is a politician with a very fascinating personal story, not at all reflected in any way in that video. I mean, Trump's announcement for president in June 2015, hate it or love it, had a lot more policy content than that announcement. You knew exactly what Donald Trump was going to run on, and he did, and now he governed on it. I can't really tell from this video what his differentiation is, what he's going to run on, what his big issue is.
He's going to, sorry, Mika, Cory, Senator Booker is going to meet with reporters this morning, too, so we may hear more. I think that's just the first blush introduction.
Willie, great point. That will be the key. What is his message? I mean, I didn't have a problem with the video. I thought it was nice, and it was we only showed you a shorter version of it, so you know, you guys can go online and take a look at the long version. But I think the bigger issue is watching him come face to face with reporters and answering questions as to what his message would be. Elise, I have my gut is that this is another great ad into a long list of really interesting candidates who have stories that hopefully, with Cory as well, match their message, which we didn't have last time, or we didn't have as many, and we had a coronation last time, and our candidate, I speak for the Democrats, I know you don't, did not have a message. I'm looking at all those folks, and I see story and message to most every face we just put up.
Well, and you're going to have an election, a primary process where the grassroots voters are going to decide who prevails. And that, indeed, as you noted, was the problem last go round. I also would add that I think that competency is going to be a very important trait that voters are judging in this election, especially in the aftermath of the longest government shutdown in American history. Donald Trump really managed to have a lot of success, claiming that he was competent, but his administration has shown anything but, and that they are unable to execute the very basics in running the government and running a foreign policy, quite frankly. So I think that looking at the track record of leadership and of what these various candidates have actually been able to do and how they have affected change is going to be very important.
Well, and also, Joe, I think leading into the next election, foreign policy, what each candidate's vision is, what their track record and abilities are, competency on this is going to be so important, because I don't even think we can see some of the damage at many levels that has been done to our State Department and to our foreign policy message around the world. Yep. And we're going to need someone in there who knows what he or she is doing.
I mean, to me, and I pray to God, Reverend Al, to the people that are going to be deciding who is the next president of the United States, competency matters. Yes, like you, I want the vision, because without vision, the people are lost. I don't want a fancy slogan. I don't want a guy or a woman who thinks one thing in the morning and then, says something else the next day. But we have, for some time, we've been electing leaders that really didn't know how Washington, D.C. worked, that really didn't know about the give and take, that weren't up to the give and take, that didn't understand what, well, let's just say what Bill Clinton and what LBJ and what Ronald Reagan understood. Sometimes you had to roll up your sleeves, you had to get dirty, and you had to talk to people who weren't on your side. You had to learn how to count the votes. And so vision is so important, but I just wanted to follow up and have you underline it, because I know you know it as well as anybody. We need somebody that knows how to make Washington, D.C. work again.
No doubt about it. The vision is the first step, but if you cannot execute the vision and manage the government while you are moving toward that, you will not achieve anything anyway, and you will only build up to a big letdown. The Bible even says that prayer without works is a dead thing. The works requires someone that knows how to work. So I think people are going to look for the balance of someone that can give them hope, give them a vision, but that has the managerial skills and track record that we know they know how to make Washington function for them. I want to know you're committed to me, but that you can deliver for me. Don't just make me feel good, make me do good, and be better. And we have not seen that in this administration. We don't need a continuation of that on the left. Having a leftist version or progressive version of incompetence is not progress.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And Nick Confessori, you bring up, I think, a really good point, too. Just generalities aren't going to work this year. Just being against Donald Trump, it's not going to work this year. You have to have a vision. You need to tell people where you're going to go. And I think it's really interesting. There's almost like a sliding scale if you look at the top 4 or 5 people that are in the race right now. If you look at the senators who are in the race right now, you've got Elizabeth Warren. We know what she believes in. We know where she stands. She's lived her life fighting that fight for a long time. Kamala Harris, with her announcement, she made it very clear who she was, what she stood for. There are obviously going to be battles based on what she did as Attorney General. That was not as progressive as I'm sure a lot of Democrats would have wanted her to be. And also, let's move now to Cory Booker and Kirsten Gillibrand, and you can take that down. We've seen it enough. Thank you. On Cory Booker, Cory, we're not exactly sure where he stands. We've kidded around at times about him running out of burning buildings with a kitten in one hand and, tweeting about the kitten with his phone in the other hand. He's not as defined. And then you take someone like Kirsten Gillibrand. I think they're going to be, it's going to be a rocky road. She can certainly get past it, but it's going to be a rocky road because she made the transformation from a conservative Democrat in Dutchess County, New York, to a more progressive Democratic senator representing the entire state.
Well, Joe, it's funny how the Trump era has kind of sort of washed away all sins of the past for a lot of Democrats. They're kind of all against him. But it's factual to describe Kirsten Gillibrand as a former tobacco lawyer who had an A rating from the NRA. She'll have to account for that. Cory Booker was a guy who defended Wall Street and private equity in very harsh terms that some Democrats are going to remember. He was also very close to Facebook with his philanthropy in Newark. So I think we're going to see, as we get past the nice part of the primary, as candidates come out and have to differentiate, kind of less of the happy talk and more differentiation. And of course, obviously, I'm sure Senator Booker has a binder full of policy proposals that will come out in the coming weeks and months.
Joe, can I just jump in for a second? I think the most critical thing, and if you think about the 7 or 8% swing voters in the suburbs of Virginia and the suburbs of Pennsylvania,
right.
I think to them, the emotional decision is going to come down to one rational thought: who's going to beat Trump? And
exactly.
I think that's the mechanism, and that's why I keep coming back to Biden. And we could talk all we want about vision, we could all talk about policy and issues, but that is the driving force. Gotta get that off the table. And I think that kind of trumps, no pun intended, any other logical discussion. And I think that is the litmus test right there, and that's why I think Biden is so far ahead of anything.
Again, though, you know what, though?
I don't think
this
we
is
know.
what I wonder about Joe Biden. And I said it about Hillary Clinton when she was at 60%. And people who hate me and hate Mika right now because they were such Hillary supporters back in 2016. No, well, I mean, I'm still getting it.
We're beyond
very few people, but I'm still getting it on Twitter. They forget what a champion I was of Hillary Clinton in 2008 and how much I like her personally, and I've always liked her personally. And I still like her personally, even though she probably doesn't like me personally. That's okay.
She likes
I
you.
like her. I still want to write a book about that 2008 race called True Grit. But I said something before the 2016 campaign that I think may apply also to Joe Biden, which is Hillary Clinton was always more she was always more attractive as a potential presidential candidate than as a presidential candidate. And I'm not so sure we don't have the same thing with Joe Biden. You can go back and see the times that Joe Biden's run for president of the United States before. It's been tough. Joe Biden, I've said this too, ran a hell of a race in 2008. He was great in the debates. He never moved the needle because he was running against history. In 2020, my God, that's 12 years later. He still may be running against history. His time may have just passed. We don't know that, but I do know that there's this thought that Joe Biden, boy, if Joe Biden could just get into the race.
That would be it, yeah.
I love Joe. Mika loves Joe.
I love him.
I just got to say, it's impossible not to love Joe.
Right.
If he gets into that race, Mika, he's going to have to fight it out just like everybody else. And I'm not so sure that 2020 is Joe Biden's year.
Well, we'll see. It's lightning in a bottle. Still ahead on Morning Joe, President Trump yesterday said that in addition to, quote, a lot of wall already being under construction, quote, we're finishing up design on certain areas, the most important areas, the Rio Grande area and others. We are building a lot of wall. We'll bring in NBC's Cal Perry, who recently returned from a trip to the Rio Grande Valley.
That? We are building a wall. We are building a lot of wall. Why doesn't he just say, I like purple? Like, this guy...
No, honestly, it's amazing.
It's disturbing that he just keeps regressing.
No, and he has his
by day.
cabinet secretary saying, we want wall when they're testifying. It's strange.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.